Welcome to week 9 of the South Carolina Football Preview Show. We're here with our sponsor, Village Idiot Pizza and Pub at the 5 Points location. They also have a location on Forest Drive in the Forest Acres area. South Carolina plays Tennessee this week. Looking for an SEC win. Lost 3 straight conference games for the first time since late in the 2009 season. 4-4 overall, 2-4 in the SEC. There may be some weird math that makes the SEC East still possible, but none of us are smart enough to do it, and I'm not even sure it exists. Certainly the Gamecocks are not thinking that way. Steve Spurrier says, we got to win 2 more games. We got to get bowl eligible. That's our goal right now. Beating the Vols, a struggling Vol team, would be a good start. Halloween weekend, Gamecocks go in black jerseys and black pants. Steve Spurrier acknowledges, we're looking for something to inspire this bunch of guys, and if it's jerseys, so be it. It'll be jerseys. David, the Volunteers upset upset the Gamecocks last year, but not a lot of success other than that under Butch Jones in the SEC. What do you see from Tennessee?
Well, Josh, Tennessee's kind of a curious ball club. Butch Jones, of course, there's some up there on Rocky Top who are already saying he should be fired. Maybe they think Bruce Pearl can come over and coach football or something. But, Butch Jones is only in his second year. A lot of things that they're pointing out is that after they seemingly got over the hump with a win over South Carolina last year, they're 0-9 in the 0-9 in the SEC since that game. So, but still they're playing a lot of really good teams, and plus they're just facing a lot of attrition. For one thing, they lost most of their offensive and their defensive lines this year, and you knew it was going to be a bad time.
Yep.
And then you had a senior quarterback, very good quarterback in Justin Worley. You knew it was going to be kind of a gamble putting him behind that makeshift offensive line, and it ended up costing him. He may still get to play this week or this season, but he did not play last week with a shoulder injury, which has put all the pressure onto redshirt freshman Josh Dobbs. So Tennessee 3-5, 0-4. Statistically, they have the least prolific offense the USC will face over the next 4 games. They average about 24 points, about 330 yards per game. They like to try to mix it up, and what they've got with Dobbs is a little bit of a shakeup, where Worley would stand back there in the pocket and try to throw to a Josh Malone and a Marquez North. USC fans remember that name for sure. And they would also be able to mix the ball up with a little bit of a Jalen Hurd at tailback. Dobbs is more of a runner. He can averaging right now only about 75 yards a game because that's the only game he's played. But, they can mix it up a lot more with Josh Dobbs in there at quarterback. So be a different looking offense than what USC will be able to see on film unless they just watch the last half of that Alabama game.
Right.
And we all know USC's problem with facing running quarterbacks. So
that's
definitely going to be a consideration, assuming that Justin Worley will not play, and right now it doesn't look like he will. With the Vols QB situation, I think that everybody's preparing for Josh Dobbs, and if Worley happens to play, so be it. Dobbs, came in last half against Alabama last week. He threw for 192 yards and 2 touchdowns, ran for 75. Now, the game was pretty much already settled. Alabama had it, but to do that on a defense the caliber of Alabama's is not bad. So Josh Dobbs will be a guy to watch for Tennessee this weekend. Other key players, you got to start in the middle of their defense with linebacker A.J. Johnson, one of the best in the country, leads the conference with 73 tackles. Steve Spurrier has been very, very complimentary of him. As he said, that guy is just all over the field, making plays and doing whatever he has to do. South Carolina's offense looked very, very good last week against Auburn, but maybe they didn't have a guy the caliber of A.J. Johnson in the middle of that Auburn defense to really stop them. So it's going to be, basically the same old story for South Carolina. How will they be able to handle a running quarterback if Dobbs is the guy? And how will they be able to try and limit Tennessee's defense and try to get back to what they had against Auburn last week? So, big Halloween matchup, and we remind you, come on down to Village Idiot Pizza and Pub for their $5 lunch special, 2 slices and a drink. They might even throw in a few bits of candy for you, this being Halloween week. So, should be a pretty good time. But that pretty much wraps up Tennessee. It was a signature win for them over South Carolina last season. Haven't had a lot of success since. So what are the Gamecocks going to try to do, Josh, to get, kind of a race last year and really keep themselves pointed toward bowl eligibility?
Well, the only thing they can do is, what they've done the last 3 or 4 games, which is let that offense air it out. And I don't necessarily mean throw the ball. I just mean, no holes barred, call everything you got in the playbook. This team is on pace to average more yards than any team in South Carolina history, on pace to average more points than any team in South Carolina history. And Steve Spurrier was asked this week, is this your best offense ever at South Carolina? And he answered, absolutely not. He said, we just haven't gotten it done in the fourth quarter.
Still thinking about those red zone possessions against Auburn.
Absolutely. And that, you can't argue with this team's production, but in critical moments, the offense has had opportunities to win games and has not done it. Mm-hmm. It happened against Missouri all game long. It happened against Kentucky in the fourth quarter. So you can understand Steve Spurrier's gripe and complaints with the offense. A lot of the fact that they are putting up so many points and yards, it's just because the defense is so bad. Mm-hmm. And they have to. They have to throw everything they've got at people. Tennessee's defense is better than Auburn's, but it's not great. I expect the Gamecocks to score points. Tennessee's offense is nowhere, as you mentioned, as good as Auburn's. This should be the game that the South Carolina defense, proves what it's been saying all week, that these problems are correctable. We'll see. I'm not 100% sure their issues are correctable.
Yeah,
but
Josh, that is one point. We've mentioned Tennessee's weakness on the offensive line. Now, it may be negated because Josh Dobbs is a runner.
Right.
But if South Carolina can't get a pass rush against these guys, then really there just might not be any hope for the rest of the season for them to ever find a pass rush.
I think that this is the time, if you're South Carolina, that the South Carolina defense, what you've been telling folks for a while is that, yes, we can get this figured out. This is just a few minor adjustments. We're going to get this figured out. This is the week to get it figured out. If you don't figure it out against this Vols offense, I'm just not sure you're going to get it figured out. Gamecocks desperately need an SEC win. Bowl eligibility, I believe this team is certainly going to get bowl eligible.
Sure.
You got a game with South Alabama out there.
Well, but you got to get one more.
Right. So. If you don't beat the Vols, boy, you're really going to you might start sweating. South Carolina has closed seasons very well the last 3 years. 4 straight wins 3 years ago, 5 straight 2 years ago, 6 straight last year. This team needs that kind of close, I think, to erase what is right now a bad taste in folks' mouth.
Now it's time for our Village Idiot mailbag. We appreciate you guys chiming in on Facebook and on Twitter with some questions for us this week. All right, Chip Felkel writes in and says, if USC wins the remaining games on the schedule, does that save Lorenzo Ward's job? Well, Chip, I can't really answer that because I don't think Lorenzo Ward's in any danger of losing his job. Now, obviously, this defense is bad, and it's not going to get much better. And I actually wrote in the paper last week, it's getting to a point where if it continues being this bad, there might have to be some changes made just to save face. If that happens, I think it would be on his staff, not necessarily him. One thing you have to consider, Chip, is that as bad as the defense has been, Lorenzo Ward has been instrumental in recruiting the next group of players. And right now they are going to, it seems they'll be able to hold on to all of those players with the exception of Devon Durant, which seems to be more of an academic issue than anything else. So I don't think Lorenzo Ward's in any danger of losing his job, Chip. JLT writes in and says, is there a chance we see Connor Mitch get some meaningful snaps this week? Well, JLT, there's always a chance, but I don't think it's going to be very likely. You've seen South Carolina's defense just as well as I have. And, these guys can't really stop anything. South Carolina's offense is going to have to be on the field, and they're going to have to produce when they get out there. That means Dylan Thompson's going to be the guy. In the case, which I think we saw against Auburn, where USC can maybe get a score or two ahead and try to mix it up, it's going to be Pharaoh Cooper coming in to play quarterback. Right. Now, who knows? Maybe they come in, the defense reverts to what it is against Missouri, and USC gets up by 4 touchdowns on Tennessee. Sure, by all means, Connor Mitch could play.
Absolutely.
But we just don't think that's going to be very likely with the way this offense has been so far.
Jared Brewer has a Deke Adams and Young defense question. Will the defense have a carryover? Will all this youth pay off next year, and what will the newcomers do? Well, anybody that can play a lick on the defensive line will help. And yes, you expect players as they mature, as they get older, to get better. At the same time, they expected this group to be better than it is. It's not like they've got a bunch of freshmen on the defensive line or even at linebacker. The freshmen are really in the defensive backfield, and I feel like those guys are getting better. So I wouldn't expect that the personnel that you have on the defensive line and at linebacker to change dramatically the players that they are in the offseason. They will get better, but I don't expect giant leaps into superstars. I think at this point if you're looking for superstars like you have had the last 3 years, you're hoping they're coming in that recruiting class. And there are people who follow recruiting who tell you that there are several candidates there.
A lot of JUCO guys can come in and play right away.
It's a highly ranked class. So I think absolutely you should have some hope that they'll be there. I wouldn't expect miracles, but absolutely you expect improvement. Gamecocks are 7-point favorites against the Vols after starting the week at 8. Everybody feels pretty comfortable that South Carolina can win this game easily, if not easily, can at least win this game at home, Williams-Brice Stadium. We're joined by guest picker Brian Glenn, who spent the first half of the week celebrating his Boston Red Sox, who until Wednesday were still World Series champions.
World Series champions.
As he pointed out, gave it up Wednesday night, but there's always next year.
That's right.
Gamecocks and Vols, Williams-Brice Stadium, black jerseys, black pants, 7:30. I think South Carolina comes out with a win. I think they'll cover the spread. I think it's 28-14 Gamecocks. I think this is a good matchup for South Carolina. This is not an offense that scares you very much. This is a defense that's stout, but South Carolina has put up points against most everybody. I expect that to continue. Brian, what do you see?
I see a fun game. I see some fun uniforms. I see weather that's going to make it feel like football season.
Absolutely.
I see a good effort out of the team who's, I think, going to be focused to win their last 4 games. I think 47-27.
Wow.
Gamecocks.
Nice.
47 points from Brian Glenn. That's something. And we know that South Carolina's offense can do
That's
that.
capable of that, yes.
Guys, I'm with you. I don't think there's any way South Carolina loses this game. I mean, I think that Josh Dobbs will present a difficult test, and Tennessee might get some early points, but then USC will just simply outscore them. I'm going with South Carolina 35, Tennessee 24. USC gets its 5th win and then keeps getting pointed toward bowl eligibility, and a little bit erases that awful time in Knoxville last year. So we'll see you at 7:30 or around then on Saturday night, Williams-Brice Stadium.